Just some grown-up boys, a long way from the car. They grabbed their hiking poles, they're out taking a stroll in Yellowstone Park. Crossing the streams, climbing the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the Grizz never will. Hauling camp gear and snacks galore. Always just a little bit more than the packs can store. Just some grown-up boys, they wouldn't change if they could. They're out hiking Yellowstone 'cause they feel like they're at home, getting lost in the woods.
Hey there!
In August 2023, three friends and I backpacked 100 miles through some of the most remote wilderness in the continental United States. A portion of this trip traveled down the Thorofare, a remote and wild corridor in the southeast corner of Yellowstone National Park. This video highlights some of those moments from the 4 days and 3 nights we spent there. It all started here, on the shores of Yellowstone Lake. We crossed the lake by boat and temporarily left the civilized world behind as we began our journey down the Thorofare. In order to hike the Thorofare, one has to get to the Thorofare. There's a couple ways to do that in Yellowstone National Park. That pretty much took up our day one. Bob, Scott, Hugh, and I hopped on a boat over at Bridge Bay Marina, took the boat across the lake, here to campsite 5E6 where the boat dropped us off. From there, we followed the Thorofare trail down the shore of the lake, eventually reaching backcountry campsite 5E1 on Beaver Dam Creek, where we spent our first night. Backcountry campsite 5E1 sits on a bluff overlooking Beaver Dam Creek. The tent sites are a little close to the Bear Pole, and it's a steep walk down to Beaver Dam Creek to get water. But the view from the eating area and the campfire ring down the thoroughfare kind of makes up for that. On day 2, we leave the high ground at backcountry campsite 5E1 behind, cross Beaver Dam Creek, head down the Thoroughfare Trail, cross Cabin Creek, Trappers Creek, and eventually Mountain Creek before settling into backcountry campsite 6D2, where we spend our second night with a fabulous view of Turret Mountain in the heart of the thoroughfare. Backcountry Campsite 6D2 is located between channels of Mountain Creek. The campsites were a bit damp and grassy, but once again that view from the firing eating area offset some of the downsides. We watched a nice sunset and had amazing views of the stars in the night sky. On day 3, we packed up our belongings at Backcountry Campsite 6D2, headed south on the Thorofare Trail, following the meanders of the Yellowstone River. We stopped at Cliff Creek, took a side trip up to Mist of the Trident Falls, then continued back south and eventually west, crossing Thorofare Creek, and then ending up at Backcountry Campsite 6Y2, perched right on the banks of the mighty Yellowstone River. The approach to backcountry campsite 6Y2 is a bit overgrown, but the campsite itself is perched neatly on the bank of the Yellowstone River. A beaver den had been built a short distance from the eating area, and its builder kept an eye on us during our stay. The Yellowstone River helped wash off the day's trail dust, and we were treated to a cloudless night with views of endless stars in the Milky Way. On the morning of day 4, Scott and I took an off-trail hike from campsite 6Y2 across the Yellowstone River to check out Isolation Falls on Falcon Creek. From there, we hopped back on the trail, caught up with Bob and Hugh at the Thorofare Ranger Station, technically one of the most remote structures in the continental United States, at roughly 30 miles from the nearest road. We were at the ranger station for a bit, then hopped back on the trail headed south, across the park boundary, continuing on the Thorofare Trail into the Teton Wilderness. After leaving the Thorofare Ranger Station, Bob, Hugh, Scott, and I hiked south and crossed the Yellowstone Park boundary. We continued to follow Thorofare Creek to its headwaters. We climbed up challenging terrain, camped near scenic vistas, and crossed paths with some friendly wildlife along the way. Future adventures for a future video, as today the Thorofare gets our full attention. We were not halfway through our journey when we crossed Yellowstone's southern boundary, but we knew we were leaving something special behind. The Thorofare is remote, untamed, and can be unforgiving. It is also a place of peace, beauty, and an opportunity for those that travel here to disconnect and find their place in nature. We hope you enjoyed our story, and make sure to say hello to the next person you see on the trail. You might just cross paths one of the dunes of Yellowstone.